Hello, and welcome to the Milestone 2 progress report for DataForge, the application that I'm writing for Full Sail University's Advanced Software Engineering course. The key components of this milestone is the ability to generate code to a file based on the message definitions that you created, and also to be able to save and load your workspace from a separate workspace file. We'll show this working now using a clean build. So we'll clean, and then we'll build this application. We'll build it in release once it's done building. Built in release, as you can see, it succeeded. Then we'll run this application. And for the purposes of trying to speed up the demo here, I made a few previous workspace files. And I will load these to show you that you can load individual files by clicking File and Open. You can select, say, My Workspace 2 and see that each one of these workspaces has a separate series of messages. If we wanted to edit a message, we can edit this message here. Say, Edit New Message. We can change it to this data message. And then edit variable 1, change it to bar 1. And give it of type int32. We can apply and close and save this. We can also save as a new file and go to workspace 4. Afterwards, if we want to export these files to a given language, we can select a language such as C# and select an output file. In this case, we will do workspace 4.c++ and click Save. This will select a file name for us, and we can click Export. We'll see that the export succeeded, and the file was saved to myworkspace4.c++. If we were to open that file, navigate to the desktop, myworkspace4.c++, we will see that it generated a C++ style series of classes that contain the messages that we have defined. If we go back to the application and then choose C#, choose a new file, enter workspace 4.c#, save that option, and then export. We'll see that it exported to the .c# file. And opening that, we can see that it created a series of messages in the same style and format, but for the C# language. We can do that again for Visual Basic. We'll name this one .vb. Save, export, open. And we can see that it is a different set of messages. There's the same set of messages, but it's a different syntax for a new language. The core components of this software for this session are inside the Workspace Manager, this function save workspace to file and load workspace from file, as well as this generate code to file function. There are a few more functions that were in here as part of the code, such as adding this message definition to a namespace. If we go through the code generation file really quick, we can see that there are multiple constructors, which is to aid with testing. Each of these constructors allow you to individually define the objects that are used in this application. If they're not defined in the constructor, then they're created with a new call. But as that's not great for testing, I've also added a constructor for defining each of the main objects used in this class directly in the constructor. If we look at the generate to code file function, we can see that it passes in a string for the file destination, a list of the messages that comes from the workspace, and the desired language. The language is then selected using either C++ for this C++ code provider, or in the case of Visual Basic and C#, we use a code DOM provider instead. The C++ code provider is a code DOM provider as well, but it's an unsupported class in modern uses of the .NET libraries. They unsupported the C++ code provider only to the extent that it is no longer by default included in the code generation utilities. You have to manually add it back in by way of external dependencies to your project. Like over here, you must add the assembly to the project in order to be able to use it. But the utility that is used to try to detect languages from code.dom-provider.create-provider does not find the C++ code provider. So we have to use a different method of creating that. Then we have a stream writer that opens up to take the definitions of the files and to take the generated code out to the resulting source code file that was selected. We then loop through each message that's in the list, add that definition to the namespace, and in this add definition to namespace function, we then go through each of the message items and add those items to the individual structure that's defined for this item in the code generation loop. We then add all of those objects to the namespace that we're using. In this case, it is a default namespace called DataForge. Then we call the code provider's utility to generate the code from a compile output, give it a stream writer, and any options. In this case, we use C-style braces. And then we close the utility, and that is determined to be a success that the file was written. If we look at the workspace manager for saving files to the workspace, we have the save workspace to file function, which takes the workspace manager, this class, serializes it into a JSON file so that it can be edited later by somebody who manually wants to create these files, and then writes that file to a workspace file. The load workspace file does the opposite and loads in the text from a given text file and then tries to deserialize it into a workspace manager. If it succeeds, it will return the workspace. This function is then used by the main Windows form to load in the file, and then if it succeeded, it instantiates that version by changing out the current workspace manager instance. Then it updates the tree view to show those new messages. And then the rest of the functions work as expected. The saving and loading mechanics are used as a dialog, like these save toolstrip menu item click events and the open toolstrip menu click events, which open a dialog, and when that dialog completes, it will then save the workspace using the workspace manager's save workspace to file function, or it attempts to load the workspace. The export utility works the same, though you need to have a selected export dialog. If we were to close this file and make it blank, it actually won't let us do that, so I can't show that. So if we close the application, then open it, and then try to export without anything after opening a file, and then we try to export with the language, it will not let us export. Clicking this load button does the same thing, where it will let you load a workspace. The biggest challenge that I had in this application this week was trying to figure out how to get the C++ code provider in there. When you look up tutorials, they all talk about how you can use code DOM provider and create provider to get a C++ file, but the issue is that it's out of date. A lot of modern search results show incorrect information, and so I had to find a new way because I wanted to be able to provide multiple languages and not just C++. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope that it provided you with some good insights into my progress on Milestone 2. Please feel free to comment or send me any questions that you have, and I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.